Sri Lanka's newly elected president has further tightened his grip on power today, handing two of his brothers several key portfolios in cabinet. Gotabaya Rajapaksa's new cabinet has been sworn in. He says he'll call a snap parliamentary election in March. At the moment, the Rajapaksas and their allies do not have the majority in parliament, making it hard to pass legislation. Now, for more perspective into Sri Lanka's new government, we're speaking to Dr. Jehan Perera. He's the Executive Director of the National Peace Council of Sri Lanka, and he joins us now from Colombo. Dr. Perera, multiple portfolios in the hands of the Rajapaksa brothers. It sounds like an overconcentration of power in one family. What do Sri Lankans think? Should they be concerned?
Well, I think this was something that Sri Lankans anticipated, and they still chose to vote for the Rajapaksa presidency. 52% of the people voted for Gotabaya Rajapaksa, whereas only 42% voted for his primary opponent. We know from the past, when they were governing before, prior to 2015, that the Rajapaksa brothers concentrated power among themselves. There were at least 3 brothers who were in power at that time, and Gotabaya Rajapaksa was the defense secretary. So this is not new. They are highly competent, efficient administrators and politicians. So I don't think the people who voted for them, the majority who voted for them, are unduly perturbed about this. Besides, this cabinet is a small cabinet. It is only 15. Usually our cabinets are much larger. There are at least a minimum of 30, or it can even go up to 40, 50. So in a way, a lot of portfolios have been concentrated in these 15 cabinet ministers, of which now 2 of them are the Rajapaksas, plus the president, who also holds the defense ministry post.
Dr. Perera, you mentioned that, the majority voted, so they know what they're getting. But what about the minorities here, about the Muslims? Apparently, they didn't vote for the Rajapaksas.
Yeah, the minorities would be concerned that the candidate they voted for, who offered them much more in his election manifesto, who was part of a government that treated the minorities with a light hand and tried to address their grievances, but not too successfully, that candidate lost. So that could be their primary concern, not so much that the Rajapaksas have tightened their control over the government. The minorities would be concerned primarily about their security, because prior to 2015, they felt that they were targeted, they were looked on as national security threats. And also they would want their rights to be vindicated, the rights to more political autonomy, which has been a long-standing demand for the last 70 years, as well as dealing with issues related to the war, which ended in 2009, such as the issue of missing persons. That is a very important consideration. I mean, there are about 20,000 documented missing persons, of which about 5,000 are military. But it is very so in terms of the numbers, maybe it's not tremendous, but it is very emotional and issue for the Tamil people. They want this problem addressed, and this has not been addressed, and now they will feel that it is not going to be addressed in the coming period also.
So Gotabaya was seen as relying heavily on Mahinda during campaigning, presumably because of Mahinda's former experience. Does this mean the possibility that it'll be Mahinda who is the one pulling the strings and really the one running the country, you think?
Mahinda is a very seasoned politician, and he's much loved by the people, especially those who voted for him. Very popular. He's seen as the one who really gave political leadership to defeating the Tamil Tiger, which seemed to be an impossible task at that time. But on the other hand, now Gotabaya Rajapaksa also shares that credit for winning the war. That's the main credit that the Rajapaksa brothers get, that they ended the war. Gotabaya is the elected president. He's the one who got the mandate. So he would, and the presidency does have powers in it, though somewhat reduced by the 19th Amendment of 2015. but he still retains a lot of power, and now there's talk that they want to abolish the 19th Amendment or change it in some way. So Gotabaya does have power, and it will remain to be seen how the brothers work together. In the past, they worked together very well. They worked well as a team. They campaigned as a team. They worked in the past as a team. Now the challenge is whether it is somewhat reversed roles, with how and where Gotabaya is actually at the helm, how they manage to balance things. It will be interesting because people are expecting, they really want Gotabaya to make a difference. And in a sense, the appointment of these ministers is a little bit disappointing because most of them are, almost all of them are old faces, whereas people are anticipating new faces and they expect Gotabaya to deliver on that.
Well, in terms of foreign policy, what would this mean for China or India then?
It is too early to tell, but I mean, we all know, both the present government as well as the past government, we know that we have to balance our relations because we are a small country and there are these big superpowers, China, India, US. So basically what everyone is saying is that there should be some equidistance. We should not become a military base for any of these countries. There should be freedom of the seas. We should have economic transactions with all of them. That is the thinking at the moment. Now, we don't know which way the tilt will be. During the pre-2015 period, the tilt was definitely towards China, but that was also because the Western countries were putting a lot of pressure on Sri Lanka on human rights issues, which the then government did not want to deal with. In the last 5 years, there has been a noticeable movement towards the West and towards the international standards, but that in turn backfired on the government that just lost power, because it was seen by the majority of people as caving into the international community, losing our sovereignty, listening to them on the issue of human rights, in which it was often argued that the Western countries were hypocritical because they violate human rights and now they are putting pressure on us, on our war heroes who won the war. So it will remain to be seen how the new government addresses the human rights issues, the agreement Sri Lanka has signed with the UN Human Rights Council about reconciliation, about issues of transitional justice. Those are going to be difficult issues. Gotabaya Rajapaksa said he will withdraw from the UN Human Rights Council resolution, which Sri Lanka signed in 2015. How he will negotiate this? And if he does not negotiate it properly, then there could be pressures with the Western countries again. And as for India, the first visit that President Rajapaksa is making is to India. So that's an acknowledgement of the important role that India has in Sri Lanka's life.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. We've been speaking with Dr. Jehan Perera, Executive Director of the National Peace Council of Sri Lanka.